So Rush Limbaugh passed away today of cancer, and a lot of people are shoveling dirt on his grave, a lot of leftists, and it's understandable. Rush Limbaugh, his greatest hits of racist quotes is truly incredible. It's truly incredible that this was the mainstream voice in American media on AM radio for so long, given the just horrendous, disgusting things he said. But it's just not my style to pile crap on someone's grave, He's gone. It is what it is. If anything, it makes me sad because it's a lesson in how not to spend a life. He totally fell into this idea of just being a mouthpiece for the ruling class. His long rants about how wonderful Trump is and how Trump has been sent by God, just genuflecting to the altar of power. And it shows what we can become in capitalism. You can allow yourself to be morphed into someone who just spreads vitriolic nonsense just to enrich yourself and be this radio host smoking cigars and be in with the ruling class. And I don't know if that's a great way to spend a life. It's certainly not how I want to spend my life. But I just want to cover this clip from Rush here because I was listening to his greatest hits and I saw him pushing the idea that Hitler and the Nazis were socialists and they were anti-big business, and I want to debunk that because it's completely wrong, and it's important for people to understand the class politics of World War II so we can learn something here from Rush's ignorance. All right, let's play it.
That's right out of Adolf Hitler's playbook. Now, what are the similarities between the Democrat Party of today and the Nazi Party in Germany? Well, the Nazis were against big business. They hated big business. And, of course, we all know that they were opposed to Jewish capitalism. They were insanely, irrationally against pollution. They were for 2 years mandatory voluntary service to Germany. They had a whole bunch of make-work projects to keep people working, one of which was the Autobahn. They were against cruelty and vivisection of animals, but in the radical sense of devaluing human life. They banned smoking. They were totally against that. They were for abortion and euthanasia of the undesirables, as we all know. And they were for cradle-to-grave nationalized health care.
So Rush was, of course, espousing these ideas that, kind of the ideas of modern socialism, of AOC and the Democratic Socialists. I'm not sure exactly when that clip was from, but, warning against all the things that typically people in the left in America are pushing for. And he says that these are the same as Hitler and the fascists and Mussolini in Italy because they were anti-big business. And this is just a blatant lie. That part is a blatant lie, and that's what we're going to focus on. Rush also says some stuff like veganism is going to decrease humanism, the amount of empathy we have for humans, because we're going to worship animals so much, and that's what led to Hitler, which is pretty insane. I don't even think I need to address that. But it does show, how Western academia rarely focuses on what the class politics of Mussolini's Italy and Hitler's Germany actually were, and they tend to focus on either the mind of Hitler or of ridiculous cultural things like, in Germany, veganism was on the rise right before the Nazis. Is there a connection? It's just this nonsense. But let's actually talk about the class politics. So when Hitler and Mussolini were rising to power, they were crushing unions and they were crushing labor organizations. Mussolini started as a socialist, but of course sold out immediately, and socialists in his own organizations were warning about him, like, he's not committed to socialism, he just wants to further himself. So Mussolini created the black shirts, and you got to keep in mind this was post-World War I and post-Great Depression, so there was huge labor movements, right? People were saying capitalism doesn't work, it's left us impoverished, it's led us into all these imperialistic wars, and all these labor organizations are growing. And the first thing that Mussolini and Hitler do on their rise to power is crush these labor organizations. Mussolini famously had the black shirts who would go around terrorizing labor organizations. And then once they were in power, these labor organizations and unionization was outlawed. And those who tried to do so were simply sent to jail or killed, obviously. We know these were murderous regimes. Unions are outlawed. Co-ops are given back to private interests, worker-owned co-ops. A lot of these stats I'm going to be reading are from Michael Parenti's Black Shirts and Reds, which I recommend you all go check out. After they rose to power, minimum wage was abolished. Factory regulations were rolled back. Overtime pay was abolished. Anyone who complained about these things was imprisoned. As I said, child labor was brought back. Kids were working in the factories again because there were no longer protections against it. And the Germans and Italians were trying to roll out as much machinery and as many weapons as they could for the war that they knew was coming up. And there were some social programs and public works projects like Rush Limbaugh was talking about, but most of them were based around evoking civic pride. It'd be a public program to go into the park and listen to someone preach about the ideals of the Nazi Party, right? Or a public works project to build statues or whatever else. These are all designed to evoke civic pride, which of course is another big part of fascism, right? We're the best. Ignore the class politics of your own country. We just got to go spread our ideology around the world and whatever racial group, and turning people against a racial group instead of turning them against the corporations like people were at the time. These labor movements were growing, and the Germans and Hitler came in and crushed them and said, no, don't worry about, the capitalists, worry about Jewish people, essentially. So nationalized industry was sold off to large interests. Taxes were increased for the workers, but decreased for private interests. And jobs were increased because there were all these armament facilities rolling out tanks and weapons, but poverty increased, debt increased, and Italy was gripped by a recession because of these anti-worker policies. So people were not, you hear the term about Mussolini, he made the trains run on time. Yeah, he made them run on time because the workers were working down the barrel of a gun, right? And that's not to say that all that's involved in fascism, is a dictatorial force in order to maintain capitalism, but that's part of it. That's part of it is understanding the class politics and understanding they crushed labor and they allied themselves with big business and big business in the U.S. with Henry Ford. During the bombing campaigns by the U.S., the Germans would hide in Henry Ford's facilities because they knew the U.S. wouldn't bomb their own capital. So U.S. capitalists were making deals with Hitler too. Hitler was very close with multinationals and especially the business community within Germany. And as I said, Western academia loves to focus on, the mind of Hitler. How could a human go this far? What kind of person is this, and how do we never let a psychology like his develop again? And yeah, it's crazy that a person could bring themselves to murder that many people. But the U.S. empire is doing similar things today, and it's all for money. And the thing that's never told about Hitler is that he amassed a giant personal fortune the entire time he was in power. He became a millionaire. He raided the public coffers, as did most the higher-ups in the Nazi Party. Most of the SS officers were amassing giant personal fortunes, a lot of which that they plundered, from their conquest. So it wasn't all about getting rich, right? Fascism had this Jewish mentality, this we're the dominant race, battering that into the German psychology at the time, or trying to. Of course, the Nazis never had a majority of the support in Germany. It was something like 40%, but that's what they were trying to push. But then underneath that is the class politics of it all, right? The fact that they were allying with big business and crushing labor. And Hitler had this thing where every time his likeness was used in a stamp or something, had to be some amount of money paid to him. And it was the only law like this anywhere in the world. And it made him millions and millions of dollars. So, the psychology of Hitler, yeah, it's crazy that someone could go this far, but it was greed, right? Regular human greed that we see under capitalism was a lot of it. He wanted to enrich himself and rise to power and be this heroic guy pushing his completely insane and violent and murderous ideas. But you got to understand that he rose to power by crushing unions. And then who was it that defeated the Nazis? Of course it was the U.S., but who lost the most troops in World War II? The Soviet Union. And you can say what the Soviet Union was, you can accuse them of making their mistakes, and of course there were many, but they were communists. They were socialists. And they took the brunt of the Nazi army, and they were the ones who defeated fascism. As many people say, fascism was crushed by the hammer of communism, right? So how are you going to stand here and say that socialism created the Nazis? This is a myth, and it's a myth that people like Rush Limbaugh push because they want to protect business interests. They want to protect big business doing imperialism in the Middle East and elsewhere, and they don't care how many people died, or at least he didn't before he was still alive, which is what his legacy will always be, which is why when we reflect on the person that Rush Limbaugh was, it's important to remember what he pushed for and why, for me, I reflect on my own life. When I die, do I want to look back and think that I protected big business and protected the interests of imperialists and murderous war criminals? Or in his case, spreading misinformation about the Nazi Party? Or do I want to look back and know I did everything I could to make the world a better place? I think I know which one I'm going to do. I hope you all choose the same. Thank you for watching. It's been awesome making some videos for you today. Thank you everyone for watching. I'm taking less hours at work now so I can make more videos, which is amazing. Thank you for your continued support. Check out links in the description to the website and the Patreon. Like, comment, subscribe. Solidarity. Peace, everyone.